Coming up today on Locked On Texas Tech, fall camp scrimmage number 1 is in the books, and we take a listen to Joey McGuire talking offensive line, an injury impacting pass catchers, and the highlight of the scrimmage. Next on Locked On Texas Tech.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We're going to start this thing off right. Raider! Everything runs through Lubbock.
Great to see you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks for making us your first listen every day on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. Today's episode brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs, helping you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free today. Terms and conditions do apply. With the only Chris Level, I'm Casey Cowan. And Chris, it's great to be back with you, man. And note the day, note the time. We've got real football actually to discuss today. It is all Red Raiders all the way, as now we have the first scrimmage of this fall camp in the rear view, and we got a whole lot to take a listen to from head coach Joey McGuire. We'll get to some developing situations as far as pass catchers are concerned, things like injuries impacting situations already to guys like Eakin, Martinez, and others. We'll talk about Jordan Brown, who got a lot of mentions over the weekend from Coach McGuire, as well as including what Coach McGuire called the highlight of the scrimmage. That is up ahead, but maybe the highlight of Coach McGuire's conversation following the scrimmage, Chris, was right here where we will start with the big boys up front, talking offensive line and those guys in charge of keeping Tyler Shuck upright in 2023. We know that's one of the focal points of the offseason, one of the spots that you have got to get much better, much more consistent if you actually do hope to contend or compete for Big 12 hardware. And you're going to like what you're hearing from Coach McGuire regarding this group. Here is the Red Raider head coach, Joey McGuire, on his offensive line's performance.
Today was a huge step for us. I'm smiling because I was messing with Chuck. I said, you don't know what to do with all this time, bro. Like there was him and Barron, like there was like 2 times that they had to check down wide open, and they held on to it to let somebody clear to get open to throw a huge play downfield, where last year there was no you had to throw the check down. I mean, you had no choice. And so, I mean, you're talking about a group that is night and day. And, man, I just really excited. And, told y'all at the first, I mean, we're fixing to get another really good guy back. He'll start working back in. I said that Ty Buchanan, had a calf strain, in our first press conference. He'll be back. He'll start really getting going Tuesday and Wednesday. So that just adds more depth to that offensive line. But man, huge. It was fun to watch today back there, because I'm back there with the quarterbacks and I'm the guy that get close. I literally was telling Coach DeRuiter, Coach, I'm trying to blow the whistle for a sack. There is nobody even close. And then I think that upset the D-line a little bit. So in the red zone, there was a couple of sacks, which you don't want to give any sacks up in the red zone. So it's good. This team really sharpens each other.
This has been the theme. Look, when we talked to Joey a lot during the spring, is like I said, we were preparing for that broadcast to do the TV for the red and black game, or the 806 Classic, I think is what Joey termed it was. He just raved then about the offensive line, biggest change on the entire team. I think not just. And it's not just about adding rusty stats. It's not just about getting Cole Spencer back. This is as much about, moving Dennis to more of his natural spot. And I think the competition at tackle has been good, and getting, I think, Caleb to the right side and getting Monroe Mills to the left side. Just maybe it's just kind of opened some things up. But I think, I think Jacoby Jackson has been pretty good here. I think he's kind of pushing on the interior. He's not. I don't think he's going to start or anything. But I mean, he's. And then I think that Ty Buchanan missing some early camp here has really kind of put Matt Keeler into a spot where he's really pushing at the tackle spot. So you've just kind of inherently created some depth, but you will hear, man, there's just more, because I think Kenny Perry talked about this last week to the media too. There's just a lot more, big wide lanes to run through for my guys now. And you hear, Joey talking to Tyler Shuck about how much time he's got. So I just think that they've taken a huge step. They needed to. Sounds like they've done it. Now they've got to go do it, obviously, in the fall.
Yeah, and hope for some good luck from an injury standpoint. We know that's always going to be a part of, any team's experience throughout the year, particularly up front along the offensive line. And I don't know of another positional group where I really maybe more so hope for some good luck, especially early in the season from an injury standpoint, Chris, because if you're trying to well, that as well. But if you're trying to acclimate some guys together and establish some chemistry, you want week after week after week after week for it to be the same 5 or same 6, whatever guys that are asked to do things. And I'm glad to hear that about Jacoby Jackson, because I think he should be pushing. I'm not here to set some expectation of him, should be a starter or something like that. But he pops whenever you see him, physically. There's no question he stands out and flashed a little bit last season. So I'm glad to hear that about him. But, man, there's no question that when you think about the last time that a quarterback is just hanging around in the pocket with all day, at least in my mind, you're thinking about 2008. I don't know, Chris, if there's anything that could really propel some expectations or propel a team, further in the direction that they want to go beyond dramatic offensive line improvement. And look, scrimmage number 1 obviously got a long way to go, but this is scratching your boy right where he itches.
Offensive line is the one position on the team where I think if you really had your, if you had your way with this deal, you're right. You'd pick your 5, and assuming they were good enough and like that you liked your 5, and that's really who you'd roll with. And without, much movement, without much rotation, or anything, and it's hard to do, but in the Mike Leach era, that was a big reason why, for that one stretch where you had all those quarterbacks that didn't get dinged up or whatever, is you had that same group up front. And I think and Texas Tech traditionally has had a pretty good, you could tell quite a story with a lot of the offensive linemen that have come through here in the last 20 years. Guys that have played at the next level, guys that have played in Super Bowls. And I don't know if you technically have anybody that's a high-end draft pick amongst this group, but I'll be willing to bet you that your 3 interior guys in Rusty, Dennis, and Cole will have a chance to play professionally if they choose. And I think that I would be shocked if they didn't want to, whether it's NFL or some of the other professional leagues out there, the XFL, USFL, that kind of stuff. But I think that's one of the strengths of your entire football team is the interior of your offensive line. I think you may, in fact, have one of the best interior offensive lines of anybody in the Big 12. Most people are going to give that nod to Kansas State because of Cooper Beebe, I think is his name. He's a first-team All-American. Consensus, one of the best offensive linemen in the country, period. And there's also all 5 starters back around him. So they're going to get the nod. And I don't know if you have the best, you can be in the conversation for best O-line in the league or anything. But I would say interior-wise, just because these guys are proven, they've done it. And it's also a tip of the cap to Dennis Wilburn for what we thought he did last year. I have the utmost respect for who he was and how he held it down last year.
No question. And I know I've used this line before, but I'm sorry if you hear a thumping over the audio. It's just my knee banging against the bottom of the desk because my leg is kicking like a Cocker Spaniel hearing you discuss the offensive line in this way. You want to talk about scratching a good boy on the belly. What a way to start the day with a nice, encouraging offensive line conversation. So we gave you that first to brace yourself for the second conversation. I'm not going to say that it's entirely is surrounded by like high stakes as the offensive line progress is concerned within this fall camp, but certainly a spot of interest as we transition to talking about some of these pass catchers on the outside, notably an injury now that has come about to Coy Eakin and what that could mean for others in the group. We'll get to what Coach McGuire has to say on that next on Locked On Texas Tech. First, today's episode brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. And in this day and age, every new hire can feel like a huge gamble. And when we're talking about your business or livelihood, that's not ideal. But LinkedIn Jobs is here to help by helping you find the best qualified candidates available fast and for free, all on one easy to use and secure platform. Simple but specific targeting tools allow you to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to consider. They go beyond just resume data by using insights from your job post, company, and their 875 million member profiles to put your post in front of the most qualified candidates faster than anyone else. So go to linkedinjobs.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedinjobs.com/lockedoncollege today to identify the most qualified candidates and connect with them fast and for free. Just like a bad hire could sink your ship, the right hire could take your business to new heights this year. And it's no coincidence that small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs number one in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. It's so easy. Even a podcast host could do it. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free today with LinkedIn Jobs. Terms and conditions apply. Glad to have you along for the ride on Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks to those everydayers out there who are joining us on the regular. You can do the same by subscribing on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. We were talking trench work just a moment ago. Let's talk pass catcher work. As Texas Tech, obviously, from a pass catching standpoint, I think has gotten some very capable guys that you're going to see in the mix once again this season. But it's also a position of interest because you probably weren't the group last year you thought you could be. So there is a gap. There is a step to be taken. Certainly some motivation, I think, among those. And not a huge margin for error, obviously, as far as depth is concerned. Unfortunately, the depth conversation takes a bit of a spin as we now have another injury for Coy Eakin, Chris, a guy that I think had been flashing a little bit through a very early portion, obviously, of fall camp. But now we've got to consider this injury for him and what the impact will be on some others. So let's get back to head coach Joey McGuire on the Eakin injury, and we'll also get to what it means for other pass catchers in that group. Here is, once again, Coach McGuire.
He's out for, I would say, until Tarleton or West Virginia. He has a slight, and we went ahead and did it like the next day, but he has got like it's nowhere close to his other one, our shucks, but he did the other collarbone. It's crazy, man. We were sitting there talking, and I mean, he said, Coach, I've gone up and caught that ball 1,000,000 times and landed that way, and you know, with collarbones, it's just like almost a perfect storm. And so it was like more of a crack than, you know, both of the other guys. It was like two places and really displaced, and so we expect him back on either Tarleton State or West Virginia.
So we got a little bit of time to wait, possibly for Coy Eakin. What does that mean now for others with the opportunity to step up? As we were talking about Eakin, you've also got to consider guys like Fungi, and now, according to Coach McGuire, Jordan Brown.
We got Jordan Brown at outside receiver. I mean, now it's Loic and Jordan. Loic went with the ones today. Jordan went with the twos. They're alternating. Jordan went with the ones yesterday. Loic went with the twos the day before, so it's back and forth. But Jordan Brown, and man, I'm going to tell y'all, I mean, you'll see, because I know Pat had put some of them out, but I mean, he caught some deep balls, and then there was one deep ball he caught, and the safety had a bullseye, you know, should have knocked him out of bounds, and he just ran through the tackle. And so, you know, good to have a football junkie to take that spot.
Yeah, so I think as far as Coy Eakin, it really he just kind of had some bad luck, man. It sucks for him because it's kind of the same type of injury that he had in the spring. I think he was doing really well in the spring, and then he went down and couldn't finish it up. And then I think he was doing really well to start out fall camp here, and then obviously goes down. Look, this could have been a lot worse, as you hear Coach McGuire saying right there. The kid is very talented. He's got it all in front of him, though. This is somebody that's very young. He's got lots of years of eligibility left, and luckily he will be back fairly soon. By mid to late September is what you're hearing, because that Tarleton State and that West Virginia game is game 3 and game 4 of the season. And I'll get to Jordan Brown in a second, but you don't lack depth here, and that's a good thing, because Coach McGuire doesn't mention J.J. Sparkman, Brady Boyd. Then you've got all the freshmen that you've signed as well that are kind of in the mix. So luckily, this isn't going to shut things down or anything. It's not ideal, especially for Eakin, because I think he could have been one of those young players that took a next step. But what it does is it allows a guy like Jordan Brown, who has been on this team for multiple years now, had, I think, 3 catches last year. It allows him to kind of, get more reps and attempt to take advantage of an opportunity here. This is what happens in football. Somebody goes down, next man up. Injuries create opportunities for others. That's just the way it works. And you're hopeful as a staff that somebody does take it and run with it. And Jordan has got some juice. I think he's got some, and I think that he's also matured quite a bit. Jordan was transferred here from University of Kansas, originally from DeSoto, and I think he was somebody that it takes him a bit to kind of acclimate and all that. But as far as athletically, I think that he's always been good, but now I think he's he's matured quite a bit. And I think that he's done the right things off the field. It's translating to on the field. He's added some weight and all that, but he's starting to make plays. And I think that, the Red Raiders will be just fine.
Can I ask you about the dynamic prior to the injury between Eakin and Fungi? Because I was a little surprised to kind of hear early on Eakin, I guess, seemingly discussed as somebody that could push to be a starter or would be a starter. And that still leaves me thinking about Fungi in a way that is, I guess, somewhat disappointed, because I'm still sitting here just thinking physically about what the guy has and, begging him to be one of those central focal points week in and week out. But am I hearing or interpreting the lay of the land correctly prior to the injury, or what do you make of that sort of dynamic?
I think there are things that are said, depth charts that are used, motivational tactics that are in play all the time to try to push. I think the team, certain players, and everybody needs a little bit, of something different. And I can't tell you that specifically what is happening here. My suspicion is that I think in some ways, hey, we don't have any starters out here. You got to go earn it. And they're still early enough in camp to where they don't want to hand anybody in anything. But I'd be willing to
true,
bet.
Chris.
Yeah.
Based on production last year, aside from Bradley and maybe Miles Price, hey, there's some casting calls happening still, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I completely agree. And I think the thing about these receiver spots, let's be honest with ourselves. We can call certain guys a starter. And in some cases, somebody plays 80% of the reps. And in other cases, I can remember, I'll give you, I'm trying to think of, I'll give you 2 names. Like Bradley Marquez, okay, back in the day, he could literally play he could literally play 90% of his reps. Okay. I think there are others that, you would say, man, he's a starter, but he can only play really about half, like at full speed, the way we want it.
Right. Gotcha.
And so I think, so my point is, look, we can call certain guys a starter. There's going to be a lot of receivers playing. And sometimes it's, hey, we're going to primarily play 6. Sometimes it's 8, so that number can vary. But semantics in some ways is a starting spot. I think that's the way it is at DB, defensive line, running back, there's some semantics here as it relates to who's a quote unquote starter.
Yeah.
But I think Loic will get plenty of run if he's healthy. And that's always been the biggest key with him.
Coach McGuire, always marketing, always motivating. I think with everything that comes out of his mouth, there's no question about that. So, yeah, nothing unintentional as far as the way that you probably phrase things. And that happens all over the country as far as visiting with the media because, you'd think a player here or there might hear something that was said in the media. Dare we imagine that possibility? I think so. Sometimes that message can hit home via an alternative path. Okay, man, speaking of an alternative path, I mean, guys show up to fall camp. What have you been doing over the summer? I got a new girlfriend. I got rid of an old girlfriend. I read a book. I went sailing. I trained a dog. I killed a duck, whatever you're doing. And now I'm back ready to play football. How about a guy putting his leg back together? Have we touched on that one? Anybody show up with that background to this fall camp? One guy that I know of, and Coach McGuire called him the highlight of the scrimmage. We'll get to that next on Locked On Texas Tech. Thanks for making Locked On Texas Tech a part of your day, whenever, however you're making it happen. We appreciate you out there on YouTube or wherever you got this podcast. Subscribe so you never miss an episode. With Chris, I'm Casey, and back to wrap it up with what Coach McGuire called the highlight of the scrimmage. Here is Coach McGuire.
The brightest part of the entire day for Red Raider Nation is Bryce Ramirez went full scrimmage today, full pads live. And so it's a dude that we all saw have a terrible injury, and he was full tilt today, played great, was in on a lot of tackles, just a testament to our training staff, our doctors, and then a kid that just has a work ethic and like nobody I've ever been around. And so great to see him. That was kind of the highlight for me, to see that guy out there because he has such a joy. He's a great teammate, and he really missed playing last year, so it was good to see him back out there.
Cal, when you go back to Raleigh, North Carolina last year, and when this happens, first of all, he was playing really good football. I think he had kind of shaken things up a bit in Tim DeRuyter's room and kind of pushed his way into heavy playing time. And I think that there was others going, whoa, man, I thought I was going to get to play more. And Bryce Ramirez just kind of was one of the best blitzers you had on your team, just really a big-time third down guy, just kind of outworked so many folks and did it with a smile on his face. And then that injury happens. And then I think there was some original concern, man, we just hope that he's okay for one.
Right.
We hope that he can walk, because I think there was some nerve damage, and we read about the deal initially, or concern for it. Walking and running was, I think, like something like let's much less playing football.
Right.
But you fast forward here, and the kids. I mean, I'm not trying to be corny, but I think he's been very much of an inspiration because of this was not good. I think this was just very scary. He spent many days in Raleigh after the injury, could not come back with the team. And it was emotional for, I think, him and his teammates and all that. But he just kept smiling, and I think kept working behind the scenes. And for him, because Joey said this, I think, about a week ago. The biggest voices on our football team was the starting quarterback, Tyler Shuck, and it was Bryce Ramirez. And I think when you earn the respect of your peers, because there's not anybody in that locker room that should have any sort of I feel sorry for myself moment when you can look at what he's endured and what he's come back from. I mean, It's just like, come to quote Joey, like, come on, bro. I mean, and I think that is so. I don't know how much he's going to get involved here yet, or what's realistic. It sounds like they've just turned him loose, and it sounds like I haven't seen enough or any of it to know. Is he lost a little bit? Is he the same? Is he better? I don't know. I just know he's going to set off metal detectors going forward because he's got a lot of titanium in that leg. But yeah, man.
Yeah, it sounds like you're hinting possibly at a Henry Rodengartner situation? Was his leg rebuilt with that of like a gazelle or something?
It's like Forrest Gump.
Exactly.
All the braces just come flying off. Jenny's just yelling, get away from the bad guys.
You're absolutely on the money when you're talking about, okay, first we're just like, can we get you back to walking and upright and give you a normal life? I mean, we'll think about football later on, but now we're thinking about football. Thank God. And Joey McGuire uses the descriptor full tilt. So that sounds like no holds barred as far as his involvement. And Chris, it's not lost on me that he is coincidentally within a positional group that's not necessarily saying, hey, help wanted, flashing lights, but man, you got some interesting stuff playing out with your linebackers with guys like Merriweather and Eldridge gone, no longer Red Raiders. Where does Ramirez factor in? And do you think that we could actually see him? I don't know if we go so far as pushing, to be a starter or something like that, but could he make a hand within that group in maybe a 2-deep type of setting?
Yeah, I really think he can play a variety of the inside or outside, and I think Coach DeRuiter used him primarily last year as a blitzer, and on passing situations, and he was really good at it, getting home and just causing problems. And he's a lot faster than he gets credit for, or he was. And I think that's kind of where you want to see, like, okay, how can we best utilize what he can give us? But
gotcha.
I just think his presence, his attitude, I think it goes a long way, man. And it's what we all love about sports, man. It's like just him being around. And, I don't know. I don't know if anybody's talked to him, but I don't know if he was a bit gun shy about this based on what happened to him. If he's like, just handling it like, yeah, man, it was a fluke deal. I'm good to go. I'm going to stick my head in there and let's make some more tackles. I don't know, but it'd be interesting to visit with him about, kind of his mindset here, because like I said, it was just, it was a bad scene in Raleigh. It takes a lot for a stadium full of people to really kind of come to a quiet and pause. And that's what happened in Raleigh that night. And it was just, it just kind of sucked. For a variety of reasons, yeah. And it
turned into a good scene, because I want to shout out, I can't remember his name, sorry, Coach. NC State head coach and the Wolfpack guys that showed up
Dave
at the
Doran.
hospital.
Yes.
I mean, you get to see some of the best of people in a situation like that. As Chris said, he had to hang out in Raleigh for a period of time, couldn't come back with his team. And you may have seen on social media things like that, NC State's head coach and others visiting Bryce in the hospital. So that was as good as it gets on the other side of that horrible situation.
Yeah, and I just remember Joey being at the airport when he came back, and there was a bit of a reception there. Anyway, it's just it's just feel good, man. It's what it's what we love about this stuff, and like you said, shout out to Dave Doran for being classy, because I think he was classy in the moment, and then after, knowing that his team and coach were back home getting ready for the next one, but. Bryce Ramirez just makes if he can give you anything, the depth, the presence, the attitude, I mean, all of it checks all kinds of boxes. It just gives you another piece to utilize for Tim DeRuiter.
And man, I'm the hair standing up on my arms just thinking about the first time that Ramirez might make a play in front of the home faithful at the Jones, and the ovation I would think would be on the other side of that. And I may bet. I don't know about my bottom dollar, maybe Chris's bottom dollar, that we do see him make a play at Jones Stadium in 2023. So looking forward to that. But yeah, feeling good to wrap it up here today. So we've had some peaks, we had some valleys, we had some night and day offensive line conversation, we had some injury conversation, and we had as good of a feel-good story, I think, as you've got heading into the season. So variety is the spice of life, Chris, and we'll continue to spice it up tomorrow. We'll actually get back to talking about Jordan Brown keeping some different company, because I'm not so sure that we've had a good idea as to what the return game could look like for Texas Tech heading into 2023, both from a punt and kicking perspective. Coach McGuire talked about that over the weekend, and we'll get to that coming up tomorrow and much more. Looking forward to it, Chris. Thanks for the time as always, man.
Absolutely, man. Fun to be talking ball. Just a few more weeks left here, and then we'll be talking the real thing. So keep hope alive. Hope everybody enjoys the early part of their week.
That's right. Subscribe on YouTube or wherever you got this podcast so you miss nothing. For Chris Level, I'm Casey Cowan. Thanks for joining us once again, and we'll see you for the next round of Locked On Texas Tech.